3 months later, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in a courtroom on Earth, facing the most important military trial in human history. The charges were serious: disobeying direct orders, risking a capital ship, causing a diplomatic incident, and endangering 400 crew members. Any one of these charges could end her career and send her to prison. The courtroom was packed with reporters, military officials, and politicians. But in the front row sat 11 beings from different worlds. The survivors of the Bright Wing had traveled across the galaxy to testify on her behalf. Fleet Admiral Chen, the same man who had denied permission for the rescue, read the charges aloud. His voice was cold and formal. When he finished, he looked directly at Elena. "Captain Rodriguez, how do you plead to these charges?" Elena stood straight and proud in her dress uniform. "Guilty on all charges, Admiral. I disobeyed orders, risked my ship, and endangered my crew. And I would do it again." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Most defendants tried to make excuses or deny responsibility. Elena was admitting to everything. "You understand that these actions could result in dismissal from the service and imprisonment?" "I understand, sir." The prosecutor, a sharp-faced man named Colonel Parks, stood to present his case. He talked about military discipline and the chain of command. He showed holographic displays of fuel costs and resource allocation. He argued that Elena's actions had set a dangerous precedent that could destroy military order. Captain Rodriguez put her own feelings above the good of humanity. Colonel Parks concluded. She risked a $1 billion warship and 400 trained personnel for 12 non-human civilians who were not our responsibility. Such actions cannot be tolerated in a modern military. Then Elena's defense attorney, a woman named Commander Walsh, stood to present her case, but before she could speak, Zarika asked permission to address the court. "Your Honor," Zarika said in her careful English, "I would like to tell you what happened from our perspective." The judge, a stern woman named Admiral Morrison, nodded. "The court recognizes Zarika of the Kalari Confederation." Zarika walked to the center of the courtroom. She was wearing formal Kalari robes, and her scaled skin caught the light as she moved. Everyone in the room was silent. "3 months ago, my people abandoned us," she began. "The Kalari Confederation decided that 12 lives were not worth the cost of rescue. The Vorthak Empire made the same choice. The Altarian Republic said we were too far away. Every government in our part of the galaxy wrote us off as dead." Paused and looked directly at Elena. "But Captain Rodriguez did not abandon us. She traveled farther than any human ship had ever traveled. She disobeyed her government's orders. She risked her career and her crew. Not because we were valuable to humanity, not because it would bring profit or advantage. She came because we needed help, and help was the right thing to give." Zarika turned to address the judge and jury. "In my 70 years of life, I have seen governments make many decisions based on logic and profit. But I had never seen someone make a decision based purely on compassion. Captain Rodriguez showed me that there are still people in the galaxy who believe that some things matter more than money or politics or safety." She looked around the courtroom. "The research data we were carrying has now been shared with every spacefaring species. It has already prevented 6 energy storms that would have destroyed ships and killed thousands of people. But that is not the most important thing Captain Rodriguez saved." "What do you believe was the most important thing?" asked the judge. "Hope," Zarika replied. "Hope that the galaxy contains people who will risk everything for strangers. Hope that compassion has not died among the stars." One by one, the other survivors testified. Pip talked about watching human engineers work day and night to repair their life support systems. The Nexari spoke in color patterns that were translated into words of gratitude. The Altarians described how Dr. Chen had learned their physiology in hours to treat their injuries. But the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. Marcus, the human cultural observer, who had been on the research mission, stood to address the court. "I joined that mission to study alien cultures," Marcus said. "I thought I understood what it meant to be human, but watching the crew of the Defiant, I learned something new about my own species." He looked at Elena with deep respect. "Captain, Rodriguez and her crew did not save us because we were valuable or important. They saved us because we were in trouble, and they had the power to help. That is what makes humans special in this galaxy. Not our technology or our weapons or our politics. Our willingness to help others, even when it costs us everything." The testimony phase lasted 3 days. Representatives from a dozen alien governments spoke on Elena's behalf. The Vorthak Empire sent an admiral to testify about the value of the rescued research. The Nexari Collective offered to pay for the fuel costs of the rescue mission, but the most surprising testimony came from Elena's own crew. Tank Morrison took the stand and looked directly at the judge. "Admiral, I have served in the military for 20 years. I have followed orders that I disagreed with and kept quiet about decisions I thought were wrong. But when Captain Rodriguez asked if we should rescue those people, every single member of this crew volunteered. Not because we were ordered to, because it was right." He paused and straightened his shoulders. "If following orders means leaving people to die when we have the power to save them, then maybe the orders are wrong." Dr. Sarah Chen testified about the medical advances that came from treating multiple alien species. The chief engineer explained how the drive modifications made during the rescue had led to improvements in human faster-than-light technology. But the most important testimony came from the crew members themselves, who spoke about pride in serving under a captain who would risk everything for people in need. On the final day of the trial, Elena was allowed to speak in her own defense. "I stand by my actions," she said simply. "I swore an oath to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I did not limit that oath to humans only. The day we stop helping people in need because it is inconvenient or expensive or dangerous is the day we lose what makes us worth saving: ourselves." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was silent. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" asked Admiral Morrison. "We have, Your Honor," replied the jury foreman. "On the charge of disobeying direct orders, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of risking a capital ship, guilty. On the charge of endangering crew members, guilty. On the charge of causing a diplomatic incident, guilty." Elena closed her eyes. Her career was over, but the foreman was not finished. "However, we recommend that all charges be dismissed due to extraordinary circumstances. Captain Rodriguez's actions, while technically violations of military law, represent the highest ideals of human service and sacrifice. We believe she should be commended, not punished." The courtroom erupted in cheers. Aliens and humans alike celebrated the verdict. "Admiral," Morrison banged her gavel for order. "Captain Rodriguez," the judge said, "this court accepts the jury's recommendation. All charges are dismissed. Furthermore, you are hereby promoted to Admiral and given command of the new Interspecies Rescue Service." Elena stared in shock. "The Interspecies Rescue Service? A new branch of the military dedicated to emergency rescue operations regardless of species or location. Your actions have convinced the government that such an organization is necessary." 6 months later, Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the UES Compassion. It was twice the size of the Defiant, built specifically for long-range rescue operations. Her crew included humans, Kalari, Forthak, Nexari, and Altarians working together. Zaraka served as her cultural liaison, helping coordinate with alien governments. Tank Morrison was her chief of operations. Dr. Chen headed the medical division, which now included specialists in dozens of alien physiologies. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a distress call from the Rigel system. A mining station has lost power and life support." Elena looked at the star chart. The Rigel system was 40 light-years away. It would take 2 weeks to get there, pushing the engines hard. The miners might not have that long. "Time to life support failure?" she asked. 10 days, Admiral." It would be close. Very close. But that was what the Interspecies Rescue Service was for. "All hands, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We have received a distress call from beings in need of help. It does not matter what species they are or which government they serve. It does not matter how far we have to travel or how dangerous it might be. We are going to help them because that is what we do." She turned to her navigation officer, a young Kalari who had requested transfer to the Human Rescue Service. "Plot a course for Rigel. Maximum speed." "Course plotted, Admiral. Engage." The UES Compassion jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward people in danger. Across the galaxy, other rescue ships were doing the same thing. The idea had spread. Species that had once calculated the cost of every rescue operation now competed to see who could respond fastest to distress calls. In the captain's quarters that night, Elena looked at a letter from her grandmother's old ship. The crew had voted to give her their highest honor. Admiral Kreshtar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet slowly rotate on the main screen. The third world from the star looked peaceful from this distance. White clouds swirled over green and brown continents. It reminded him of his own homeworld, before the great cities covered every surface. "Admiral, the initial scans are complete," reported his science officer. The planet contains approximately 7 billion intelligent life forms. They appear to be bipedal mammals with primitive technology. Kreshitar nodded. Another backwater world with creatures barely smart enough to build fire. The Galactic Concordat had rules about such places. The primitive species protection protocol was clear. No contact with pre-warp civilizations. Let them develop naturally, without interference. But this system was different. The gas giants held massive deposits of rare minerals. The asteroid belt contained enough metals to fuel the Zephyrian Empire for decades, and the primitive creatures on the third planet would never know what happened in the outer reaches of their system. Begin mining operations on the fourth planet's moons, Kreshitar ordered. Deploy the automated platforms throughout the asteroid belt. We'll strip everything of value while staying well clear of the primitive world. His tactical officer looked up from her console. Sir, Concordat regulations require us to maintain a minimum distance of 2 astronomical units from any inhabited world. Our current position puts us at 3 units from the third planet. Perfect. The creatures down there probably don't even know we exist. Kreshitar was wrong. Deep beneath the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico, Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her computer screen in disbelief. The gravitational sensors had detected something impossible. Massive objects were moving through the outer solar system, objects that hadn't been there yesterday. Run the calculations again, she told her assistant, Dr. James Rodriguez. I've run them 6 times, Sarah. The data is solid. We're detecting at least 12 massive signatures near Jupiter's orbit. Each one is roughly the size of a small moon. Sarah felt her hands shake as she reached for the secure phone. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. The objects were moving in formation, with precision that only intelligent design could create. After 50 years of searching for signs of alien life, humanity had finally found it, or rather, it had found them. This is Dr. Chen at Arecibo Deep Space. I need to speak with Director Walsh immediately. We have a code black situation. Within an hour, the news had reached every major space agency on Earth. NASA, ESA, Roscosmos, CNSA, and ISRO all confirmed the same impossible readings. The objects were real, they were artificial, and they were currently strip mining Jupiter's moons. President Martinez sat in the Situation Room, listening to the briefings with growing alarm. Around the table sat the heads of every major intelligence agency, military branch, and space program. How long have they been there? The president asked. Based on the mining patterns, we estimate at least 2 weeks, replied General Harrison, from Space Force Command. They've been very careful to stay in the outer system. If we weren't specifically looking for gravitational anomalies, we might never have noticed them. Do we know their intentions? Dr. Chen spoke up from her video link. They're clearly avoiding Earth. Everything suggests they're trying not to interfere with us directly. This might be a purely resource-gathering operation. Secretary of Defense, Collins leaned forward. Or they're studying us before making their move. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it. Humanity had always wondered what would happen when they finally encountered alien intelligence. They had hoped for peaceful contact, scientific exchange, maybe even an invitation to join a galactic community. They hadn't expected to be ignored while strangers pillaged their solar system. What are our options? The president asked. General, Harrison pulled up a holographic display. Limited. Our fastest ships would take months to reach the outer system. We have no weapons capable of engaging targets at that distance. And frankly, Mr. President, we have no idea what we're dealing with. These objects could represent technology centuries or millennia beyond our current capabilities. So we do nothing? We watch, we learn, and we prepare. In the depths of space, Admiral Kreshitar was pleased with the progress. The automated mining platforms had extracted millions of tons of valuable materials. The gas giants' moons were rich in rare elements that would fuel Zephyrian industry for generations. His science officer approached with a datapad. Admiral, we've detected some unusual electromagnetic emissions from the third planet. What kind of emissions? Organized radio signals. The creatures appear to have developed basic communication technology. They're transmitting what looks like entertainment and information broadcasts across their planet. Kreshitar barely glanced at the report. Primitive radio was nothing to worry about. Most species developed basic electromagnetic communication before they learned to leave their homeworld. It was a natural step in technological evolution. Any signs of space travel capability? Minimal. They've placed some basic satellites in orbit and sent a few crude probes to nearby worlds. Nothing that suggests faster than light travel or advanced propulsion. Then they're not a concern. Continue operations. But on Earth, things were far from primitive. In hidden bunkers beneath the Colorado mountains, teams of scientists and engineers worked frantically to analyze every piece of data about the alien visitors. Supercomputers that officially didn't exist processed the information, looking for patterns, weaknesses, and technological signatures. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes led the analysis team from a facility that appeared on no government budget. For 30 years, a small group of scientists had theorized about this exact scenario. They had prepared, planned, and developed technologies that the public would never see. "We're dealing with fusion-powered vessels," she reported to the emergency committee. "Their energy signatures suggest technology roughly equivalent to what we might achieve in the next century, assuming normal development." "But we haven't followed normal development, have we?" asked Director Walsh. "No, sir. Project Prometheus has been working on advanced propulsion for decades. The theoretical frameworks are solid, and we've had working prototypes since 2019. In the orbit around Earth, objects that appeared to be simple communications satellites began subtle course corrections. Their true nature was known to only a handful of people in the world's most classified programs. For 50 years, humanity had been building defenses against a threat that most people believed was purely theoretical. Now that threat was real, and humanity's response was already in motion. The mining operation continued for 3 more days. Admiral Kreshtar grew confident that the primitive world posed no threat to his mission. The creatures were clearly unaware of the activity in their outer system. Their basic radio emissions continued unchanged, carrying their simple entertainment and communication signals. On the 4th day, everything changed. "Admiral!" The communications officer's voice was tight with alarm. "We're receiving a transmission from the 3rd planet. It's directed specifically at us." Kreshtar spun to face the officer. "That's impossible. They don't have the technology to detect us at this distance." "Sir, the transmission is coming from multiple points on the planet's surface. They're using focused beam communications, and they know exactly where we are." The message was simple, transmitted in basic mathematics and followed by crude pictographs. It showed the solar system, with symbols indicating the alien ships and their mining operations. Then it showed a simple sequence, a representation of the 3rd planet, followed by symbols for peaceful contact. The primitives wanted to talk. Admiral Kreshtar stared at the message for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer and gave an order that would change the course of galactic history. "Ignore it. Continue operations." The attack came without warning. Admiral Kreshtar's battle fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 12 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a small planet, moved into attack formation. Their weapons had ended civilizations before. Today, they would add another species to that list. "Begin orbital bombardment," Kreshtar ordered. "Target major population centers. We'll break their will to resist before they can organize a defense." The first wave of plasma bolts screamed down from space at 90% the speed of light. Each blast carried enough energy to level a mountain. The targets had been chosen carefully from the probe's reconnaissance data. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, and 12 other major cities around the globe. Dr. Sarah Chen was drinking coffee in the Arecibo control room when the sky turned white. The plasma bolt meant for New York never reached the ground. 3 miles above Manhattan, it struck an invisible barrier and dispersed harmlessly into space. The energy shield that protected the city had been hidden in plain sight, disguised as a routine atmospheric research project. Similar scenes played out across the globe. London's shield generators, built into the underground tunnel system, absorbed the incoming fire. Beijing's protection came from satellites that had masqueraded as weather monitoring stations for 20 years. Moscow's defense grid emerged from bunkers that the world had forgotten existed. Not a single human city was destroyed. Admiral Kreshtar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "Report what happened to the bombardment." "Sir, the energy blasts were intercepted by some kind of defensive grid. The primitive world has planetary shields." "That's impossible. The scans showed no such technology." But impossible or not, the evidence was clear. The 3rd planet was defended by technology that the Zephyrian Empire didn't fully understand. Hidden generators created energy barriers that could stop their most powerful weapons. On Earth, President Martinez spoke to the world from a bunker beneath Washington, D.C. "My fellow humans, we are under attack from an alien force, but we are not defenseless. For 70 years in secret, we have prepared for this day." Around the globe, People watched in amazement as their planet's true defenses revealed themselves. The moon, which had seemed like a peaceful research outpost, bristled with weapons that emerged from hidden installations. Satellites that had provided internet and GPS services reconfigured themselves into orbital defense platforms. In the depths of space, proximity alarms screamed through Admiral Kreshitar's flagship. "Admiral," shouted his sensor officer. Multiple contacts emerging from the asteroid belt, large vessels moving at high speed. "Show me." The main screen filled with an image that would haunt Kreshitar for the rest of his brief remaining life. Ships were emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. Not the crude vessels he expected from a primitive world, but sleek, angular warships that seemed to bend light around their hulls. "How many?" he asked quietly. 37 capital ships, Admiral, plus over 200 smaller vessels. The human battle fleet had been hidden in plain sight. Asteroid mining ships revealed themselves as battle cruisers. Research stations became weapons platforms. Even some of the larger asteroids had been hollowed out and converted into mobile fortresses. At the head of the fleet flew the UES Indomitable, humanity's first dreadnought. Admiral Sarah Kim stood on its bridge, watching the alien fleet on her screens. She had waited her entire career for this moment. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Weapons free. Target their command vessels first." "Ma'am," reported her tactical officer, "the aliens are trying to retreat." "Too late for that. They came to our home. They attacked our cities. They threatened our children." Her voice carried across the communication channels to every human ship. "Show them why that was a mistake." The space battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved with impossible agility, their hulls flickering, in and out of visibility as stealth systems engaged and disengaged. Weapons that channeled the power of stars themselves lanced through space, tearing through alien armor like paper. The Zephyrian ships, designed to fight conventional battles against conventional enemies, were overwhelmed by human tactics. Swarms of smaller vessels attacked from all directions, while capital ships used precision strikes to disable key systems. When conventional weapons weren't enough, human ships performed ramming attacks at near light speed. Admiral Kreshitar watched, his fleet being systematically destroyed by opponents who fought like demons.
"How are they doing this? Our intelligence said they were primitive." "Sir, their technology appears to be based on principles we don't understand. Their ships are using some kind of space-time manipulation for propulsion and stealth. And their
weapons? Analysis suggests they're channeling stellar matter through artificial wormholes. Each shot carries the destructive power of a small sun. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 11 of the 12 Zephyrian warships were debris clouds drifting through space. Only Admiral Kreshitar's flagship remained, its engines disabled, and its weapons destroyed. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Admiral Kim's face appeared on every screen in the surviving alien ship. She spoke in perfect galactic standard, though no human was supposed to know that language. "I am Admiral Sarah Kim of the United Earth Space Navy. Your fleet attacked our homeworld without provocation. Your admiral will be returned to your people with a message. Earth remembers its enemies." A human boarding party materialized on Kreshitar's bridge using technology that violated several laws of physics. They moved with military precision, securing the area and treating the wounded aliens with surprising efficiency. "Admiral Kreshitar," said the human boarding party leader, "you are being released to carry a message to your government. Earth offers one chance for peace. Any future aggression against humanity or human interests will result in the complete destruction of your military forces." "This isn't over," Kreshitar managed to say through his injuries. "The Galactic Concordat will never allow a primitive species to threaten established powers." The human officer smiled coldly. "Admiral, we stopped being primitive the day we decided to survive. Your people wanted to know what humans are capable of when threatened. Now you know." Within hours, news of the battle reached every corner of the galaxy. The impossible had happened. A pre-warp civilization had not only defeated a major galactic power, but had done so with devastating efficiency. On the Concordat homeworld, emergency sessions convened as military analysts tried to understand how the humans had hidden such advanced technology. The Primitive Species Protection Protocol was hastily suspended as xenobiologists reclassified Earth's threat level from harmless to extreme caution advised. But humanity wasn't finished. Admiral Kim stood in the Indomitable's war room, studying star charts of Zephyrian space. Around the table sat the commanders of humanity's secret fleet, officers who had trained for decades in hidden facilities around the solar system. "Orders from Earth Command are clear," she announced. "The aliens know where we live. It's time they learned that we know where they live too." The human fleet began preparations for humanity's first interstellar military operation. Ships that had been hidden in the outer solar system for years, powered-up drives that could cross galactic distances in days rather than months. "Admiral," asked Captain Rodriguez of the UES Retribution, "what are our rules of engagement?" "The same rules they used on us. Military targets only, but make the message clear. Earth protects its own, and Earth remembers its enemies." As the human fleet prepared to depart for Zephyrian space, Admiral Kreshitar's damaged ship limped home carrying news that would reshape galactic politics forever. The primitive world in the third stellar system wasn't primitive at all. It was the homeworld of a species that had been preparing for galactic warfare while pretending to be harmless. The humans had been watching the galaxy for decades, learning its languages, studying its military doctrines, and preparing for the day when they would no longer be able to hide. That day had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, the UES Indomitable engaged its faster-than-light drive and vanished into hyperspace, followed by the rest of humanity's battle fleet. Their destination was the Zephyrian homeworld, and their mission was to deliver a message that the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had awakened, and they were not in a forgiving mood. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system like ghosts materializing from nightmare. 37 warships, their hulls black as the void between stars, arranged themselves in attack formation around the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the planet that had sent death to Earth. Zephyr Prime was beautiful, a world of purple oceans and silver cities, home to 12 billion souls who had no idea their IDA military had just declared war on humanity. "Admiral," reported Captain Martinez from the sensor station, "we're detecting massive defensive installations throughout the system, orbital platforms, defense satellites, and at least 50 warships moving to intercept." Expected. The Zephyrians have had centuries to fortify their home system. Kim studied the tactical display. But they've never faced human military doctrine. The Zephyrian home defense fleet moved to meet the human intruders with confidence born of 1,000 victories. Admiral Thexvar commanded the most powerful military force in this sector of the galaxy. His ships had conquered dozens of worlds and pacified countless species, but as he watched the approaching human vessels on his screens, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: uncertainty. "Analysis of the human ships?" he asked his science officer. "Difficult to obtain, Admiral. Their hulls seem to absorb our scanning beams. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Weapons systems? Unknown. They're not broadcasting any recognizable weapons signatures." Admiral Thexvar frowned. In his experience, primitive species compensated for technological inferiority with obvious displays of firepower. These humans showed nothing but empty space where their weapons should be. "Perhaps they're bluffing," suggested his tactical officer. 37 ships against 50? If they're bluffing, they're very confident. The first exchange of fire answered all questions about human capabilities. The Zephyrian fleet opened the battle with a coordinated barrage from their plasma cannon arrays. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon lanced across space toward the human ships. The human response was immediate and devastating. The UES Indomitable simply vanished from sensors as the plasma bolts passed through empty space. It reappeared 3 seconds later, directly behind the Zephyrian flagship, its main guns already firing. What emerged from the human dreadnought's weapons wasn't plasma or lasers or any energy beam the Zephyrians recognized. It was raw stellar matter, channeled through artificial wormholes and compressed into projectiles that existed at temperatures found only in the cores of stars. The Zephyrian flagship's shields collapsed instantly. Its armor, designed to withstand any known weapon, simply ceased to exist as the stellar fire touched it. The massive warship broke apart like a child's toy thrown into a furnace. Admiral Thexvar had exactly enough time to realize he was dying before his ship's reactor detonated. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships demonstrated technologies that violated everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics. They moved through space-time like submarines through water, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons channeled the fundamental forces of creation itself. But it was their tactics that truly terrified the surviving Zephyrian commanders. Human ships fought with a coordination that suggested shared consciousness. They anticipated each other's movements, covered each other's approaches, and struck with precision that seemed impossible in the chaos of battle. When conventional tactics weren't enough, They improvised with a creativity that no military academy could teach. The UES Retribution performed a maneuver that would be studied in war colleges for centuries. Captain Rodriguez ordered his ship to ram a Zephyrian cruiser at 90% light speed, then used his ship's experimental phase drive to pass through the enemy vessel's hull. The Zephyrian ship simply came apart as its molecular structure was disrupted by the passage of phased matter. Within 2 hours, the Zephyrian home defense fleet ceased to exist. Admiral Kim surveyed the debris field that had once been 50 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. Her own fleet had suffered minor damage to 3 vessels. No human lives had been lost. "Admiral," reported Captain Chen from the UES Vengeance, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from the orbital defense platforms." Acknowledged. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was precision orbital bombardment of military targets. Human ships, their weapon systems now fully revealed, began systematic destruction of Zephyr Prime's military infrastructure. Kinetic bombardment platforms rained tungsten rods the size of telephone poles onto army bases, naval facilities, and weapons manufacturing centers. The precision was surgical. Military installations vanished in pillars of superheated plasma, while civilian structures remained untouched. Schools, hospitals, and residential areas were carefully avoided, protected by targeting systems that could distinguish between a weapons factory and a children's playground from orbit. But the message was unmistakable. Humanity could destroy anything it chose to destroy. In the capital city of Zephyr Prime, High Command watched their military might being systematically dismantled. Communications arrays that had coordinated their empire for centuries simply ceased to exist. Spacecraft construction facilities that had built their greatest warships were reduced to molten craters. "How many ships do we have left?" asked Supreme Admiral Vorthak. "In the home system?" "None, sir. The humans destroyed the entire defense fleet. System-wide defenses eliminated. They targeted every military installation with impossible accuracy. And our ability to resist?" The silence that followed was answer enough. A transmission reached High Command on all frequencies. Admiral Kim's image appeared on every screen in the government complex, her face calm and professional despite having just orchestrated the destruction of an entire star system's military capacity. "I am Admiral Sarah Kim of the United Earth Space Navy. Your forces attacked our homeworld without provocation. Your people launched an unprovoked war against humanity. That war is now over." The image cut to scenes from the recent battle: Zephyrian, warships being torn apart by impossible weapons, defense platforms crumbling under precise bombardment, and the debris fields that marked the end of Zephyrian military power. This is what happens to species that mistake human restraint for weakness. Your military forces in this system have been eliminated. Your ability to project power beyond your homeworld has been removed. You will rebuild your civilization under the following conditions. The terms that followed were not negotiations. They were facts delivered by the representatives of a species that had just proven its ability to enforce any agreement it chose to make. Zephyr Prime would pay reparations for the attempted genocide on Earth. Their military would be restricted to system defense only. Any Zephyrian vessel found beyond their home system without human approval would be destroyed without warning. Most importantly, Zephyr Prime would send representatives to the Galactic Concordat with a message. Earth was no longer a primitive world to be ignored or exploited. Earth was now a power that demanded recognition. "You have 48 hours to begin compliance with these terms," Admiral Kim concluded. "Any resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your military infrastructure. We will not negotiate. We will not compromise. We will not show mercy to those who threaten human lives." The transmission ended, leaving Zephyr Prime's leadership to contemplate their new reality. They had attacked what they thought was a defenseless world, and discovered instead that they had awakened something terrible and powerful. News of Zephyr Prime's defeat spread across the galaxy at light speed. Within days, every major power knew the impossible truth. A species that had been classified as primitive had destroyed one of the galaxy's established military forces in a matter of hours. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the world with news that would change humanity's place in the universe forever. "My fellow humans, today we have announced our presence to the galaxy. We are no longer hiding in the shadows, no longer pretending to be less than we are. The universe now knows that Earth stands ready to defend itself and its people against any threat." The secret was finally out. Humanity had been preparing for galactic contact for 7 decades, developing technologies in hidden laboratories, building ships in concealed facilities, and training officers for a war they hoped would never come. But When that war arrived at their doorstep, humanity was ready. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was about to begin, and it would begin with the galaxy's respect, earned through overwhelming demonstration of power that no species would ever again mistake for primitive weakness. Admiral Kim stood in her ready room, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed so distant or dangerous. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in the only language that civilizations understood: superior firepower and the will to use it. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Concordate's emergency session was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their voices creating a cacophony of fear, confusion, and barely controlled panic. Ambassador Drylac of the Altrurian Federation called for order, but the assembly was too shaken to maintain diplomatic protocol. The impossible had happened. A pre-warp species had not only defeated a major galactic power, but had done so with technology that defied everything they understood about scientific development. The reports must be wrong, insisted Counselor Vexon of the hegemony. No species develops faster than light travel and stellar-class weapons without going through the standard technological progression. The evidence is undeniable, replied the Concordate's military advisor. Our deep space monitoring stations recorded the entire battle. The humans possess technology that appears to be decades or even centuries ahead of their supposed development level. In the viewing gallery, holographic displays showed the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet in devastating detail. Ships that had been the pride of their empire reduced to debris in minutes. Orbital defenses that should have held for months swept aside like dust. How is this possible? Whispered Ambassador Thrillop of the Peaceful Collective. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yexlar, the Concordate's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward with a datapad containing analysis that had taken his team days to complete. We've been monitoring Earth for 57 years, he announced. Standard procedure for pre-warp civilizations, but our monitoring was limited to passive observation of electromagnetic emissions and basic orbital activity. And we missed the signs. The humans have been developing their technology in complete secrecy. Underground facilities, hidden construction projects, classified research programs. While we observed their public scientific development, their military and space technology advanced along an entirely different track. The implications sank in slowly. Every member species of the Concordate maintained monitoring stations around primitive worlds. All of them had assumed that electromagnetic communications represented the full extent of a species' capability. If they had been wrong about humanity, what other primitive worlds might be hiding advanced military technology? On Ni, the Concordate Station's observation deck, Ambassador Elena Vasquez watched the debate through reinforced transparent aluminum. She had arrived 12 hours earlier aboard the UES Diplomacy, humanity's newest ship that diplomatically carried enough firepower to reduce the entire station to cosmic dust. She was humanity's first official representative to galactic civilization, and she was enjoying the panic her presence caused. Ambassador Vasquez, came a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Drylac approaching nervously. The Concordate Council would like to discuss terms for Earth's integration into galactic society. Elena smiled coldly. Integration? Is that what we're calling it? The Concordate wishes to extend full membership to humanity, with all the rights and privileges. Stop. Elena's voice cut through the diplomatic pleasantries like a blade. Let me make something very clear, Ambassador. Earth is not requesting membership in your organization. Earth is informing you of new realities. She gestured toward the viewing ports where the UES Diplomacy hung in space like a dark promise. Your people have spent centuries assuming that military power determines galactic politics. You were right. The difference is that you no longer have the superior military power. Ambassador, surely we can reach some accommodation. We already have. The accommodation is that you will recognize Earth as a sovereign power, with the right to protect its interests throughout the galaxy. Any species that threatens human citizens, human ships, or human worlds will answer to the Earth Defense Force. The formal vote was a formality. With the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet still drifting through space as testimony to human capabilities, no member species was willing to risk being classified as hostile to human interests. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Concordate with unprecedented speed. More importantly, humanity was recognized as a protected species sponsor, giving them the right to extend Earth's protection to any world they chose. The vote was unanimous. Not from respect, but from the kind of wisdom that comes from watching superior firepower in action. Within months, human technology began filtering into galactic markets. Medical advances that could extend lifespans by centuries, computer systems that operated at quantum speeds, and manufacturing processes that could build anything from raw elements. But human military technology remained strictly classified. We're willing to share our medical and civilian advances freely, Elena explained to the Concordat Science Council. We want to see the galaxy prosper and grow, but our weapons technology is restricted to Earth Defense Force personnel only. Surely, some cooperation in military research, began Dr. Thexelon of the Research Directorate, would be inadvisable, Elena finished. Human military doctrine is based on overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. It's not a philosophy we recommend for species that are still learning to coexist peacefully. The real message was clear. Humanity would share the tools of creation but keep the weapons of destruction for themselves. Human mercenaries quickly became the most sought-after military contractors in the galaxy. A single squad of human soldiers, equipped with personal shields and weapons that violated several laws of physics, could pacify entire star systems, but they were selective about their contracts. We don't fight wars of conquest, Captain Maria Santos explained to a prospective client. We don't engage in genocide. We don't target civilian populations. If your conflict involves any of those elements, find someone else. But surely for the right price. Captain, you misunderstand. This isn't about money. This is about standards. Human soldiers fight to protect the innocent and maintain peace. We're not interested in helping you oppress your neighbors. The galaxy learned quickly that human military assistance came with conditions that were non-negotiable. Human naval officers became instructors at military academies across known space, teaching what became known as Terran doctrine, the art of achieving maximum effect with minimum force. The goal of military action, Admiral Kim explained to a class of alien officers, is not to destroy your enemy. It's to convince your enemy that continued resistance is futile. But surely overwhelming firepower is a tool, not a strategy. The humans who designed our military doctrine understood something that many galactic powers have forgotten. The best victory is the one achieved without firing a shot. The lessons were practical demonstrations of human tactical thinking. How to end conflicts quickly and decisively. How to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing strategic effect. How to build military forces that enemies respected too much to challenge. But the most important lesson was unstated. This is what happens when you threaten human interests. 2 years after first contact, Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her office at the New Xenological Affairs Department, reading reports from across the galaxy. The universe had become a very different place since humanity revealed itself. The Zephyrian Empire was rebuilding under human oversight, their military restricted to system defense, but their economy thriving with access to human medical technology. Former military officers were retraining as peacekeepers and humanitarian workers. The hegemony had quietly ended 3 separate wars when human observers arrived to monitor the situation. The presence of a single human ship in orbit was enough to encourage diplomatic solutions. A dozen primitive worlds had been granted protection under Earth's sponsorship, their development proceeding naturally without fear of exploitation by more advanced species. Her computer chimed with an incoming message from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. A smile crossed her face as she read the transmission. Another species had made the mistake of attacking a human colony world, assuming they were dealing with scattered refugees cut off from Earth's protection. The attackers had been identified as the Krextar Dominion, a military power from the galactic rim that apparently hadn't received the message about humanity's new status. She forwarded the report to Admiral Kim with a single note attached. They'll learn. In orbit above Earth, the UES Indomitable powered up its drives and began gathering the fleet. The response would be swift, decisive, and educational. The galaxy was still learning that human colonies were extensions of Earth itself, protected by the same overwhelming force that had humbled the Zephyrians. Dr. Chen looked out her window at the blue sky of Earth, where children played in parks while above them, invisible orbital platforms maintained vigilant watch. Humanity had been forced into the galactic community through violence, but they had ensured that violence would never again be one-sided. The primitive world that had once hidden in cosmic shadows now cast those shadows across star systems. Species that had once dismissed Earth as irrelevant now checked with human authorities before making major military decisions. The galaxy had wanted to know what humans were capable of when threatened, Now they knew, and scattered across hundreds of worlds, in universities and military academies, in government chambers and corporate boardrooms, the same message was repeated in dozens of languages.